Hollywood is littered with comeback stories, but Val Kilmer never got his. One day he was Batman, the next he was a ghost on the call sheet, and on April 2025, that ghost turned into a headline. Val Kilmer dead at 65. Fans blamed cancer. Tabloids blamed ego, and studios blamed creative differences. But Mel Gibson says the real culprit was something far darker, an unspoken code that punishes any actor brave enough to ask why. Tonight, we rewind the tape Kilmer left behind, line it up with Gibson's leaked confessions, and expose the pattern that keeps repeating whenever Hollywood's brightest step out of line. Buckle up. By the end, you might wonder whether silence is the industry's deadliest special effect. Val Kilmer didn't break into Hollywood. He pickpocketed its keys. At 19, he became the youngest student Juilliard had ever crowned with acceptance. 5 years later, his parody spy flick Top Secret turned him into the new smart-mouthed heartthrob. Top Gun strapped him into a fighter jet opposite Tom Cruise and minted Iceman. The cocky foil audiences secretly liked more than Maverick. Critics wondered if the swagger was an act, until the Doors proved it wasn't. Kilmer inhabited Jim Morrison so completely that real-life bandmates joked they'd just seen their friend resurrected. Tombstone cemented his myth. A tubercular. Doc Holliday spinning Latin quips and pistols faster than anyone else in the frame. Then came Batman Forever. When the cowl closed over those hungry cheekbones in 1995, Kilmer looked like a man who could punch crime and brood over poetry in the sea. Same breath. For a moment, he was more than a star. He was Hollywood's next guarantee. But guarantees come with fine print. Kilmer's appetite for truth in every scene, multiple takes, script tweaks, questioning marks he felt weren't honest, made studio accountants twitch. A-list confidence played dangerously close to backlot defiance, and Hollywood loves a rebel only as long as the box office graph tilts upward. Kilmer's graph was still climbing, yet the murmurs had started. Difficult, demanding, doesn't know his place. Director Joel Schumacher didn't mince words about those murmurs. Decades later, he still recalled the Batman Forever set as childish and impossible, confessing he'd prayed never to work with Val again. He was rude, inappropriate. Then we had 2 blissful weeks where he wouldn't speak to me. Far Out magazine couple, that with tales from the island of Dr. Moreau, burning a cameraman's arm with a cigarette, locking himself in trailers when rewrites disappointed him, and the reputation calcified. Yet here's the industry riddle. Tantrums seldom end careers. Christian Bale famously hurled expletives on Terminator Salvation and went on to win an Oscar. Tom Cruise flipped couches, still rockets F-18s on screen. Why then did Val vanish when the 1997 sequel Batman and Robin geared up? Instead of returning, he was replaced overnight by George Clooney. No explanation, no apology tour, just silence. Theories ranged from contract squabbles to scheduling conflicts, but insiders whispered that studios were tired of a leading man who treated every blockbuster like method theater. Kilmer didn't help his image. In interviews, he dissected scripts in forensic detail, correcting journalists on trivial plot points, admitting he'd rather rewrite entire scenes than compromise truth. To executives raised on test screenings, that passion looked perilously close to insubordination. By the mid-2000s, Kilmer's phone had stopped ringing for big tentpoles. In a raw interview, one of his last before throat cancer stole his voice, he didn't sugarcoat it. "Yeah, I'm kind of blacklisted," he said, noting he hadn't booked a studio film in 15 years. The culprit, by his own account, wasn't talent or illness. It was refusing to behave in the way that gets you hired. He spoke of a naive belief that Hollywood rewarded artistic conviction. Instead, he learned the town prefers silence and obedience. When asked if he'd play the game differently to work again, he half joked, half sighed. "In the way that gets me hired, yes." The confession echoed through film blogs, an A-lister pleading to be let back into a world he once ruled. Critics chalked it up to karma, but Kilmer's vanishing act wasn't unique. Around the same late 90s window, Wesley Snipes would be indicted for tax issues and serve a 3-year sentence. Brendan Fraser, after alleging a 2003 groping by HFPA President Philip Burke, slipped into near obscurity for a decade. CBS News GQ. Something systemic, not personal, seemed to muzzle men who spoke out or refused to conform. By the mid-2000s, Kilmer's phone had stopped ringing for big tentpoles. In a raw interview, one of his last before throat cancer stole his voice. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Yeah, I'm kind of blacklisted," he said, noting he hadn't booked a studio film in 15 years. The culprit, by his own account, wasn't talent or illness. It was refusing to behave in the way that gets you hired. He spoke of a naive belief that Hollywood rewarded artistic conviction. Instead, he learned the town prefers silence and obedience. When asked if he'd play the game differently to work again, he half joked, half sighed. "In the way that gets me hired, yes." The confession echoed through film blogs, an A-lister pleading to be let back into a world he once ruled. Critics chalked it up to karma, but Kilmer's vanishing act wasn't unique. Around the same late 90s window, Wesley Snipes would be indicted for tax issues and serve a 3-year sentence. Brendan Fraser, after alleging a 2003 groping by HFPA President Philip Burke, slipped into near obscurity for a decade. Something systemic, not personal, seemed to muzzle men who spoke out or refused to conform. Enter Mel Gibson. In a 1998 sit-down with director Mike Figgis, long before viral clips existed, Gibson painted Hollywood as a weird town where the saloon doors swing shut whenever the outsider walks in. "You learn," he warned, "that some of your worst nightmares were real the whole time." A few years later, Gibson would bankroll The Passion of the Christ with his own millions, claiming studios ran from controversy. He made $500 million worldwide and felt the cost in future greenlights. By 2023, he resurfaced to champion Sound of Freedom, a child trafficking thriller shot in 2018, locked away during Disney's 2019 purchase of Fox, then rescued by Tiny Angel Studios and hustled into a $180 summer sleeper. Gibson's message: certain stories threaten powerful interests, and those who push them pay a toll. He publicly saluted Val Kilmer for refusing the handshake, hinting that Kilmer saw too much and opted out. Gibson didn't specify what too much meant, but in conspiracy forums the pattern was already forming. Kubrick's sudden death 6 days after screening the uncut Eyes Wide Shut, a film about masked elites, looked eerily like another cautionary headline. Skeptical viewers will note the lack of smoking guns. Believers insist the evidence is circumstantial by design. Either way, the 1998-99 timeline is crowded with disappearing acts. Kilmer's exit fits snugly. While rumors swirled, Kilmer kept filming, literally. Long before vlogging existed, he carted a camcorder across sets, family vacations, even chemo sessions. In 2021, directors Ting Pu and Leo Scott shaped 800 hours of that footage into the Amazon documentary Val. Viewers expecting vanity found melancholy instead. A man cataloging his triumphs in case the industry erased them. Kilmer's rasping post-surgery voice narrated only fragments. Most reflection came through his son Jack reading diary entries. The film hinted that losing his platform hurt more than losing his health. In one scene, Kilmer revisits Comic-Con, not as a headliner, but as a nostalgia guest, signing 8x10 glossies to pay medical bills. He looks grateful yet haunted, mumbling, "I'm still figuring out how to be Val." 2022 finally gave Kilmer a mainstream curtain call inside Top Gun: Maverick. Director Joseph Kosinski staged Iceman as an admiral, typing on screen because cancer had robbed Val's voice. But for one pivotal line, they partnered with London firm Sonantic. Engineers fed hours of archival interviews into a neural network and produced a vocal clone so perfect it made Tom Cruise blink back real tears. The comeback earned ovations, yet the tech underscored a cruel irony. Hollywood would use Kilmer's digitized voice, but not his actual one. Just 3 years later, Kilmer was gone. Business Insider broke the news. Pneumonia, complications from years of fragile health. Coroner notes cited lingering infections, malnutrition, and unhealed surgical wounds. Friends said he'd retreated into painting and prayer, answering fewer calls fans mourned. Studios issued polite statements. Yet the blacklist's chill never thawed. No studio had mounted a Kilmer-centric vehicle in over 2 decades. Some blamed insurance risk. Others whispered he still carried the rebel brand. Whatever the cause, his filmography closed on a cameo powered by algorithms, not casting directors. So was Val Kilmer erased for art house temper or for peering behind the velvet curtain? The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive, and that may be the point. Systems powerful enough to bury careers seldom write memos admitting intent. What we can measure is the pattern, speak against the status quo, like Kilmer critiquing scripts, Gibson blasting Hollywood's moral vacuum, Fraser naming his alleged abuser, Snipes sparring with the IRS, Kubrick filming secret society rituals, and watch the phone stop ringing. Some return years later, others exit in silence. Kilmer's own tapes show a man wrestling with gratitude and regret, wondering aloud if all the fights were worth it. In the end, he left a puzzle the industry would rather ignore. His life asks whether artistic freedom truly exists inside a machine that monetizes compliance, and whether the cost of defiance is obscurity or something worse. If that question keeps you up tonight, you're in good company. Mel Gibson says he still asks it every time a new project stalls. And in our next video, we'll trace the same pattern through streaming's new gatekeepers, because history suggests the house on the hill doesn't change, it just swaps locks. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, sometimes the loudest silence in Hollywood is the role you never see again.